There is a group of countries that wants to take on the economic dominance of the US and the G7. The G7 is an economic cooperative of the 7 most advanced nations in the planet: the US, Japan, Germany, the UK, France, Italy, and Canada. And the group that wants to topple them are the BRICS nations. BRICS stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And the BRICS' main goal, led by China, is to create an international payment system outside of the US dollar and SWIFT. But it's not working out for them right now. They have a lot of disadvantages, but let's at least talk about what their strengths are. For one, they have a much larger population, about 3.5 billion people, while the G7 only has about 800 million. The economic growth of the BRICS nations' GDP, which is up here, is significantly higher than the G7, which is down here. On average, the BRICS nations are ahead each year by at least 3%. 5 out of the 6 countries that were invited by the BRICS nations have accepted the invitation: Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Egypt, Iran, and Ethiopia. Last but not least, a lot of these BRICS nations are major oil producers, which is the lifeblood of the world. That's where the advantages stop. First, the only country in the entire BRICS bloc that is anywhere near as developed as the US or the other G7 nations is China. All of these other economies are built around commodities. A more developed and diversified economy is a more agile economy that can adapt to emergencies and catastrophes, which the BRICS economies are not. While the G7 has a payment system that they fully cooperate called SWIFT, China, India, and Russia have each made their own form of payment system, and they can't agree which one should be adopted by all of BRICS. G7 uses the US dollar, which is the world's reserve currency, in order to settle all international payments. The BRICS nations are trying to use their own native currencies in order to do the same, and they keep running into trouble. The main BRICS bank is called the New Development Bank. And guess which currency powers that bank? The United States dollar. When it comes to the question of the BRICS nations forming their own currency, let's just listen to what the CFO of the BRICS Bank has to say about it. There is no suggestion right now to create a BRICS currency. Then there's the fact that the G7 is much more economically, politically, and ideologically aligned than the BRICS nations. With the exception of Japan, the G7 are all Christian nations. Their government systems are all similar, and each of these countries has the same type of economy, a mixed one. Compare that with the religious differences of the BRICS nations right now. Each of these religions have historically been at odds with at least one other. Even today, Saudi Arabia, which is Sunni Islam, and Iran, which is Shia Islam, have proxy ideological wars, like what's going on in Yemen between the Houthis. Now compare the differences in their government systems. Russia and China are both authoritarian regimes, and China is a single-party socialist republic. That doesn't jive very well in a diplomatic and economic bloc. Speaking of economy, let's look at the economic types. Most of them are mixed economies, with China's one exception, a socialist market economy. Not to mention that notable Indian politicians have said that they are actually afraid of what China is doing, and it's pushing them into closer economic alliances with Japan and their allies. Russia has the same exact fear, except they have nobody to turn to. And Brazil has made it known to China and Russia that they are tired of their vote and voice not being heard. For general purposes, you could say that a mixed economy is a free economy. These free economies do not want to have a socialist authoritarian economy at the helm, like China. Meaning the BRICS nations suffer this crushing disadvantage called lack of cohesion, which is something that the G7 doesn't have. That, on top of the fact that even though the BRICS nations have a much higher population, their total GDP of $30.8 trillion last year is only 2/3 of the G7's $45.9 trillion. Adding that together, you come to the conclusion that BRICS is just a house of used toothpicks. They are a boogeyman that's only raised when the purchasing power of the dollar is too strong or the price of oil is too high. My name is the Geo Husar, and tell me what else you'd like to know about the BRICS nations. Thanks for watching.